Welcome to the first module of our subject, risk management. Risk management is a more realistic term than safety. It implies that hazards are ever present, that they must be identified, analyzed, evaluated, and controlled or rationally accepted, according to Jerome F. Lederer. So this unit will discuss the different definitions of risk management, what it really means, and what are those things to consider in performing it. Also, this unit will allow the students to grasp information about the history of risk management and how it started. Likewise, this will also introduce students to the various principles and concepts in risk management, which are all important to the overall risk management procedure. So these are our learning objectives. First is to describe the ways to achieve an effective risk management, understand the comparison of the earliest approach and modern form of risk management, and last is recognize the important principles and concepts in risk management. In every business, from small corner store to the large manufacturer, there are common challenges with insurance, claims, and risk in general. Buildings can be damaged by fire, someone could slip and fall, vehicle accidents often occur, or losses can occur as a result of defective products. Now, more than ever, it is vital to the success of an organization to understand risk management and to learn to control liability. So, the discussion in this module will give us all the information we need to understand the insurance market and to get us started with risk management. Everyone knows what risk is. We use the word every day and take risks regularly, whether we realize it or not. So in every decision you make, when assessing the pros and cons, you are also doing a risk assessment. The challenge is to make it a more conscious process where your business is concerned. So what is risk management? Risk management is the process of making and carrying out decisions that will minimize the adverse effects of risk on an organization. The adverse effects of risk can be objective or quantifiable like insurance premiums and claims costs, or subjective and difficult to quantify such as damage to reputation or decreased productivity. By focusing attention on risk and committing the necessary resources to control and mitigate risk, a business will protect itself from uncertainty, reduce costs, and increase the likelihood of business continuity and success. So a risk exists where there is an opportunity for a profit or a loss. In terms of losses, we commonly refer to the risk as exposure to loss or simply exposures. A fire is an exposure. Defective products or defamation are liability exposures. The loss of business that results from a damaged building or tarnished reputation is also an exposure. The extent of a risk can be expressed as follows. So risk management encompasses the identification, analysis, and response to risk factors that form part of the life of a business. Effective risk management means attempting to control as much as possible future outcomes by acting proactively rather than reactively. Therefore, effective risk management offers the potential to reduce both the possibility of a risk occurring and its potential impact. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and controlling threats to an organization's capital and earnings. These threats or risks could stem from a wide variety of sources, including financial uncertainty, legal liabilities, strategic management errors, accidents, and natural disasters. IT security threats and data-related risks, and the risk management strategies to elevate them have become a top priority for digitized companies. As a result, a risk management plan increasingly includes companies' processes for identifying and controlling threats to its digital assets, including proprietary corporate data, a customer's personally identifiable information, or what you call PII, and intellectual property. So every business and organization faces the risk of unexpected harmful events that can cost the company money or cause it to permanently close. Risk management allows organizations to attempt to prepare for the unexpected by minimizing risks and extra costs before they happen. So this is the risk register. A risk register is used to document risks, analysis, and responses, and to assign clear ownership of actions. Every business faces risks that could present threats to its success. Risk is defined as the probability of an event and its consequences. So risk management is the practice of using processes, methods, and tools for managing these risks. Risk management focuses on identifying what could go wrong, evaluating which risks should be dealt with, and implementing strategies to deal with those risks. So businesses that have identified the risk will be better prepared and have a more cost-effective way of dealing with them. So this is an example of risk register. So you can see the risks, you can see what could cause the risk, what would be the impact, what would be the likelihood, is it low, medium, or high, and what would be the outcome of the risk, what is the risk level, what is the cost, and what is the mitigation plan. So how will you mitigate this risk? We can also see here in the definition of risk management the different words associated in risk management. You can see the strategy, accept, transfer, avoid, reduce, mitigate, and control. So let's discuss the brief summary of the long history of risk management. So the study of risk management began after World War II. Risk management has long been associated with the use of market insurance to protect individuals and companies from various losses associated with accidents. Other forms of risk management, alternatives to market insurance, surfaced during the 1950s when market insurance was perceived as very costly and incomplete for protection against pure risk. The use of derivatives as risk management instruments arose during the 1970s and expanded rapidly during the 1980s. As companies intensified their financial risk management. So international risk regulation began in the 1980s, and financial firms developed internal risk management models and capital calculation formulas to hedge against unanticipated risk and reduce regulatory capital. Concomitantly, governance of risk management became essential, integrated risk management was introduced, and the chief risk officer positions were created. So nonetheless, these regulations, governance rules, and risk management methods failed to prevent the financial crisis that began in 2007. So how did risk management start? Some historians believe that the earliest concept of managing risk arose because of gaming. So thousands of years before internet users could play online poker, people in different ancient civilizations played games with dice and bones. So here in the PowerPoint, you can see dice made of bones. So Before now, these are used to play games. Also, people played games that evolved into chess and checkers well over 2000 years ago. Some historical evidence that gaming gave rise to probability theory, important to risk management, comes from writings by Dante and Galileo. The famous mathematicians Pascal and Fermat wrote each other about games of chance in the 1600s, a correspondence that is believed to have given rise to modern probability theory used today. If one were to consider the role of insurance in risk management, it is still possible to trace it back to ancient times. For example, mutual aid and burial societies have been documented as far back as the earliest days of ancient Rome, so these are considered the precursors of modern insurance companies. But when did risk management become a career? Corporate risk management has been a career before people actually called themselves risk managers. For example, the first actuaries worked for the precursor of a modern life insurance company in England as early as the 1700s. However, it is probably possible to find even earlier examples. At any point in history, when people managed businesses, armies, or entire countries, there were certainly people employed to manage risk with the tools that they had at the time. According to risk management history definition and critique, the modern terms for managing rose after World War II, but the discipline mostly began as a study of using insurance to manage risk. Later, from the 1950s to the 1970s, risk managers began to realize that it was too expensive to manage every risk with insurance. So the discipline began to expand to alternatives to insurance. For example, training and safety programs might be considered insurance alternatives. The next is the process for risk management. So we all hear about risk management and risk assessment. The notion of trying to determine upfront all the various things that could go wrong is definitely a difficult task to undertake. Many projects that has hit rough times or failed completely can often find its troubles attributed to an unforeseen problem that was not adequately taken into account upfront. Now, while no one has a crystal ball and can foresee every single issue that may or may not arise, it is important to still make a discerned effort into assessing as many conceivable risks and derive action plans to contend with them. There are a whole slew of publications available regarding risk management and risk assessment. Degree and certificate programs are also available to those wishing to explore this area further. Truth be told, whole companies and careers are built around the notions of cataloging risks and formulating plans of action should problems appear, as well as providing suggestions on how to proceed in order to mitigate potential risks. Generally speaking, project managers are not formally schooled in the concept of risk management. Their background encompasses aspects of risk assessment, but depending on their role, it is likely to be one piece of the set of overall duties as project manager may be required to perform. With that being said, it is important to take a moment and define some of the key concepts and definitions pertaining to risk management. What are some of the key takeaways and ideas that a project manager should be mindful of if attempting to perform a risk assessment on their project? What are some of the core principles that they should be aware in order to best handle their project? So these are specific core principles in regarding to risk management. When looking to perform an actual risk assessment, the following target areas should be part of the overall risk management procedure as defined by the International Standards Organization or ISO. The process should create value. So number one, it should be an integral part of the organizational process. Two, it should factor into overall decision-making process. Three, it must explicitly address uncertainty. Four, it should be systematic and structured. Five, it should be based on the best available information. Six, it should be tailored to the project. And seven, it must take into account human factors. Eight, it should be transparent and all-inclusive. Nine, it should be dynamic and adaptable to change. And 10, it should be continuously monitored and improved upon as the project moves forward. When first addressing a risk management procedure for a project, take note of the aforementioned principles to ensure that your specific assessment is matching up with the core ideals as defined by ISO. So the ISO 31000-2018 Standard Risk Management Guidelines lists the following 8 principles for any solid risk management program. So first is the integration. An organization should integrate its risk management efforts into all parts and activities of the organization. Next is the structured and comprehensive. Creating and following a comprehensive, structured risk management approach leads to the most consistent, desirable risk management outcomes. Third is customize. An organization's risk management approach should be customized to their own needs, including the organization's objectives and the external and internal context in which the organization operates. Next is inclusive. To be most effective, risk management should involve all stakeholders in appropriate and timely ways. This allows the different knowledge sets, views, and perceptions of all stakeholders to be considered and implemented into risk management efforts. Next is dynamic. As the organization changes, including its external and internal context, the organization's risk management program and efforts should be changed too. Change is inevitable, and successful organizations know how to work with change. A risk management program should help the organization anticipate, identify, acknowledge, and respond to changes in an appropriate and timely way. Uses best available information. Effective risk management is done by considering information from the past and present as well as anticipating the future. Therefore, the information from the past and present must be as reliable as possible, and risk managers must consider the limitations and uncertainties with that past and present information. All relevant stakeholders should receive necessary information in a timely and clear manner. Next is considers human and culture factors. So risk management is a human activity and it takes place with one or more culture. For example, is the organizational culture, etc. So risk managers must be aware of the human and culture factors that the risk management effort take place, um, and know the influence that human and culture factors will place on the risk management effort. Next is the practices continual improvement, sorry. Through experience and learning, risk managers must strive to continually improve an organization's risk management efforts. Various organizations have laid down principles of risk management. There are risk management principles by international standardization organization and by project management body of knowledge. Meanwhile, the Project Management Body of Knowledge or PMBOK has laid down 12 principles. This article carries an amalgamation of both PMBOK and ISO principles. The various principles are organizational context. So every organization is affected to varying degrees by various factors in its environment: political, social, legal, and technological, societal, etc. So for example, an organization may be immune to change in import duty, whereas a different organization operating in the same industry and environment may be at a severe risk. There are also marked differences in communication channels, internal culture, and risk management procedures. So the risk management should therefore be able to add value and be an integral part of the organizational process. So next is the involvement of stakeholders. The risk management process should involve the stakeholders at each and every step of decision making. They should remain aware of even the smallest decision made. It is further in the interest of the organization to understand the role of stakeholders that they can play at each step. Third is the organizational objectives. When dealing with the risk, it is important to keep the organizational objectives in mind. The risk management process should explicitly address the uncertainty. This calls for being systematic and structured and keeping the big picture in mind. Next is reporting. So in risk management, communication is the key. The authenticity of the information has to be ascertained. Decisions should be made on best available information, and there should be transparency and visibility regarding the same. Next is the roles and responsibilities. So risk management has to be transparent and inclusive. It should take into account the human factors and ensure that each one knows its roles at each stage of the risk management process. Next is the support structure. So support structure underlines the importance of the risk management team. The team members have to be dynamic, diligent, and responsive to change. Each and every member should understand his intervention at each stage of the project management cycle. Next is the early warning indicators. So, keep track of early signs of a risk translating into an active problem. This is achieved through continual communication by one and all at each level. It is also important to enable and empower each to deal with the threat at his or her level. Next is the review cycle. So keep evaluating inputs at each step of the risk management process. So always remember, identify, assess, respond, and review. The observations are markedly different in each cycle. So identify reasonable interventions and remove unnecessary ones. Next is supportive culture. So brainstorm and enable a culture of questioning and discussing. This will motivate people to participate more. And last is the continual improvement. So be capable of improving and enhancing your risk management strategies and tactics. Use your learnings to access the way you look at and manage ongoing risks. So this ends our first module. So if you have any questions, you may post it in our Teams, or you may send your questions or concerns, clarifications in our messenger group chat in Facebook Messenger. So before we end this, let me leave this quote by Gary Conn. If you don't invest in if you don't invest in risk management, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's a risky business. So this only proves that investing in risk management, no matter what business you are, no matter what kind of business you have, it is really important. So thank you for watching our first um, discussion, first module.